the children were praised for being really smart. The other half were complimented on having worked really hard. Then they were asked to take a second test, and they were told they could choose one that was pretty simple and that they would do well on, or they could choose one that was more challenging, but they might make mistakes on it. 90% of those praised for effort chose the harder test. But of those who were praised for being smart, the majority chose the easy test. So let's look at some of the really interesting data on mindset in students. So this graph shows what happens when students received an intervention. It turns out students' performance declined through 7th grade, but the intervention stopped that. That graph shows only what happened from a mindset intervention. The students had the same maths teachers and the same curriculum. So that intervention and all sorts of other useful advice is on the Brainology website. So a question I want you to answer now is
So as you can see, there are the two different mindsets. We have the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And what we really want to work on is moving our students towards having that growth mindset. We want them to really want to do challenges. We want them to try that hard work, because we know that later on in life, that's what we do when we work. When we work as a team, when we work in buildings, we problem solve. That is one of the highest things that people do in businesses. They're trying to solve problems, figure out how do I make my company better? How do I do my work better? So we need that growth mindset throughout our lives. And there's times you get stuck, so then we need to give them strategies to help them get unstuck in that fixed mindset. Carol Dweck is who she was talking about in that video. And in terms of that brain growth and perseverance, it is the idea of praise. That's a really big thing. A lot of us didn't know that when we praise for, oh, you're really smart, that can actually be something that makes them stop wanting to do challenges. So in all of that research, and Joe Willer mentioned it, they do find out that there is an impact on what we say to kids. When we praise their effort, things like, you worked really hard on that. That helps them know that, oh, okay, so it's my effort that helped me do well, and not just because I'm smart. Our goal really is to have students thrive on challenges and see failures as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to learn, and help them understand that they can persevere in these challenges and get better at what they're doing. So we believe at the Halton District School Board that everyone can learn math to the highest levels. Everyone is capable of learning math and learning the strategies to help them succeed in their math classes. And we also believe that students have that growth mindset, and they understand and can learn that they can learn anything, and the more they work at something, the better they're going to get at it. But it does take hard work to do things. Because I know we've all probably taken a course or been in a time in our lives where we had to work really hard at it, and when we did that, we succeeded. That's what we're working on our students learning how to do. Being able to persevere and believe in themselves so that they can do better. We also want them to learn, especially in math, that there's no such thing as a math person. We weren't born being able to do math and be good at math or be better at math than somebody else. We all have that innate ability to be able to learn and be a math person. We may just have to take different routes. And that's something we're also really working on, especially in our mathematics classes, getting them to understand that they can do this. We can all do this.
That's what we showed. Sorry.
Pardon?
We showed that one.
Okay. So then, what does it mean to be good at math? Thinking about things you may or may not have heard, even as a student, when you were back in school. It's okay, I wasn't good at math either. Have you ever heard that one? No, I'm not a math person, so it's okay if you're not. Or have you ever heard your child maybe say, I'm not good at math? Or did you ever say it? Based on something someone said to you. Or, I'm not smart. Because we hear that sometimes from kids because they can't do something. And that's the part that we're trying to really work at changing. We really want them to be able to see that just because we make a mistake or we fail at something doesn't mean I'm not smart. It just means I gotta figure out another way to do it. And that's the idea behind having that growth mindset. So now we have some of these things. You may see these actually in some of your schools. In some of the schools that your children are in, these bulletin boards have been made a lot. It's all about changing our words so that our mindset changes as well. You can see some of these examples, like what am I missing, instead of I'm not good at this. The biggest word to add into anything is the word yet. We like to talk a lot about growth mindset in terms of the power of yet. I'm not good at this yet. I don't understand this concept yet. I'm not smart yet. I'm not able to answer this question yet. And every time we add that yet in, it kind of stops us and makes us think, oh, okay, what am I going to do to help myself get better at it? And there's all sorts of things like they've got this is too hard, or I'm awesome at this. That's another one. That's kind of that, oh, look, I'm so smart. So instead of I'm awesome at this, I'm on the right track, or I worked really hard. And all of those tiny little changes can start helping them think about the fact that they need to persevere with what they're doing. I had another really good one. A lot of people might hear, you got it. I told you you could do this. Or it could be, you got it. You worked really hard. Or instead, hey, you got an A on that test. It was great to see all those strategies you used. All those new strategies you learned. So we're praising the process instead of the person. And when we praise the process, we're showing them that that process is important. We're going to try a little activity with you today, do a little hands-on, get it so you can stand up. That is going to show you the impact of growth mindset. So right now she is handing out a brain. Thank you. And we'll pretend it's yours today.
Extra brain.
Yes, sometimes I need an extra one in my bag, just for me. So you're going to take that. I'll wait till she's got handing it out for you. I want you to think about a time when you made a mistake or you encountered something that's challenging. I can think of some things that were challenging. I want you to take that paper, crumple it up. Really, really tight. Crumple it all up. It's available online if you want to try it at home. So you can crumple it all up tightly. And now, we're going to get to throw that mistake or that challenge against the nearest wall. Let it go. Throw it. Let go of your mistake. Let go of your challenge. Try not to hit everybody else. Now, go and grab your piece of paper. Retrieve yours. Well, you have to clean up the room. No, I'm kidding.
There's one under a desk there, and then I don't know.
Okay. Oh, up. Sorry. Yep. Your piece of paper. Uncrumple that paper. We're going to give you, if you need a marker, I have one. On the side of the paper with the brain, start tracing those lines with a marker. Trace all those lines that you see from the crumpling up of the paper. You can trace with a pen. I got some markers, highlighters, if you'd rather. Teacher with pencil case, right?
Yeah, me too.
I got you probably, here, you want a better color? Yeah. I have blue and orange.
Can I have a different one, please? Yeah.
Better one? Here you go.
From the creases, all the new creases.
Oh, your new creases, all those new creases that you made from crumpling up your paper.
First, let's look at some of the
There we go. Anybody notice anything? As you're doing this? Do you see anything new on that piece of paper that you crumpled up?
Connections.
Connections. A lot. I love that. There are so many new connections that your brain is making with that mistake and that challenge. The lines that you've just gone and taken a marker and traced over, all those new lines are representative of the synapses firing in your brain when you make a mistake. Every time we make a mistake, our brain actually grows in terms of the synapses that fire and the neurons. And the reason this happens is because it has to make connections with other part of your brain. When we already know how to do something, there isn't a lot of synapse firing. There's no new connections being made. When we make that mistake and have to figure out what it was that we didn't do correctly, or what it was that was challenging, and how do I do this? If I'm using a really good example, myself on last weekend, spent 3 hours learning how to replace all the insides of my toilet. It took a very long time. I persevered. I got it. It's a little crooked, but it works. That's a lot of learning. Like a ton of learning for me. And so that would have been where all these synapses are firing, and now I know how to do it. It's great. But I had to work through that. And that's what we do when we learn something new. Whenever we're learning something new and we get it wrong and we fail, and I failed a lot, that's why it took 3 hours. We learn so much more from that. And that's when we start to let our brains grow. And the more we let kids figure this out, the more they're going to understand that mistakes aren't bad. They're fantastic. And it's so important. We're going to show you a little video where Joe Bowler will do a good explanation of how this works.
Recent things that have been learned about the brain. And the key finding that everyone is talking about is what is referred to as brain plasticity. So people used to think that some people had the brain for maths or other subjects and some didn't, but recently there have been stunning examples of brain growth. Now, the brain isn't actually made of plastic, but the idea of neuroplasticity refers to the lifelong capacity of the brain to change and rewire itself. In fact, there have been stunning examples of the brain's ability to create new neurons and connections in recent years. So when learning happens as synapse fires, electric currents fire and create new neurons and connections between neurons. And the paths of a synapse are like footprints in the sand. They can become firm paths if they're travelled a lot, or without use they wash away. And the brain is so flexible, it's changing by the minute. It's losing and gaining connections. You may even be gaining or losing, hopefully the former, synaptic connections right now. So let me introduce you now to the life of a London cab driver. All London drivers have to learn 320 routes that help them remember and learn the 25,000 streets and 20,000 landmarks and places of interest within a 6-mile radius of Charing Cross in London. So it's extremely complex, and they have to pass a test which is called the knowledge. All black cab drivers have to have passed the knowledge. It takes between 2 and 4 years to pass the All London Knowledge, and once you're licensed, you can work anywhere in the Greater London area. Here's a photo of London streets. As you can see, there's no grid structure in London. So what the researchers found is that the taxi drivers go through a training period, and by the end of their training period, the hippocampus had grown. When they retire from being a black cab driver later in life, the hippocampus shrinks back down again. They also found, they compared the brains of London taxi drivers with London bus drivers, and the London bus drivers don't have to learn such a complex set of routes, and found that the hippocampus of taxi drivers was bigger than the bus drivers. So the region of the hippocampus that had grown is specialised in acquiring and using complex spatial information in order to navigate efficiently. So a second example of brain growth was a 9-year-old girl who had half of her brain removed. She was having fits, and they literally took out one hemisphere, and at first her whole left side was paralysed. But she amazed doctors, as within weeks she'd grown connections back, and eventually, in a very short time, developed all of her functions back, and that was because of the incredible and fast growth of her brain. So we now know that all students, maybe except those with a very specific learning disability, but all other students can achieve at the highest levels in maths in all levels of school, K right up to the end of high school. And other countries that believe this about students do a lot better than we do in the US or the UK, so countries such as Japan. So here's the irony. Children can develop half a brain or change their brain significantly, yet we think kids can't develop a few neurons they need to learn algebra. Many people think that some kids are capable or smart or high ability, whatever you want to call it, and some are not. Now, we all know students come into maths classes with some of them finding work easier, some finding it really challenging. But that doesn't reflect their potential for future work. What it tells you is that students have been having different experiences since childhood, and some of those experiences have been causing synapses to fire and some haven't. So as teachers, our job is really to disrupt the trajectories of students who haven't had challenging experiences, and it's to provide all students with the richest and most challenging environment possible. If their brain can change in 3 weeks, think what students can do over the course of a year with the right materials. So to recap, brain research tells us a number of things. It tells us every child can excel in mathematics in school, from elementary to high school. It tells us about the potential of the brain to grow, no matter where students start from, and that potential is huge. It tells us that every new learning experience changes your ability. Even though we think of students as having a certain ability or not, being high or low, every experience can change that ability.
We love that video because she does a really great job of explaining how that brain plasticity works and how important it is in terms of learning. The fact that we know that there's research that tells us that everybody can learn. For example, the regrowing her brain and being able to use her left side again after having had like half a brain being taken out during surgery. We can help our students learn mathematics. And this is an activity we do with students in classrooms to promote the idea of growth mindset with them and to kind of show them, and they really love throwing the paper against the wall as well. But they come up with, and they start to learn all about that growth mindset.
Okay. She says something really neat in that video. She says our job is to disrupt the trajectory of students who aren't on that path. And in Halton, we have a number of goals for our students, but Mark Kilberger talked about finding your why, and certainly within Halton, one of our whys is student achievement. We want our students to do well, but more importantly, we want them to believe that they can do well, and you're a huge part of that, so we're on the right path. But we're going to do a little bit more looking at mistakes. So this came back for me again to those keynote talks. When Stuart Miller talked about perspective.
Sorry.
And coming in today, you might have had a very binary experience with mistakes. A mistake in your mind was something that was negative. That was something that you were maybe ashamed of or regretted. And so we really like this idea of pointing out to students that mistakes are actually the only way that our brain does, or one of the ways, or I should say, that our brain is growing and changing. So here's a little bit more on mistakes.
So recently, a New York Times columnist, Peter Sims, wrote a really compelling piece about the critical role of mistakes in innovation and design thinking. And he analysed the differences between more and less successful entrepreneurs. And he found that the successful ones basically make more mistakes. And they learn from those mistakes, and that learning set them on the path to huge success. But another New York Times columnist and best-selling author of the book Better by Mistake, Alina Tugend, has written, correctly in my view, that we are raising a generation of children who are terrified of blundering, of failing, of even sitting with the discomfort of not knowing something for a few minutes. I was really stunned last year in a teacher workshop I was running when Carol Dweck had given up some time to join us, and she said many things that were very helpful, and we'll hear from her in this lesson, but one of them was, every time students make a mistake in maths, they grow a new synapse. And that really hit me as very important. So what we're finding from research is that when students make a mistake, and I'm thinking of this as a kind of core mistake, not an error, such as a numerical slip, but when they make a mistake about an idea in maths, two sparks happen. First when they make the mistake, and then again when they think about the mistake. And that brain growth that comes from those sparks in the brain doesn't happen when people get work correct. So this was stunning to me, and the reason is, it turns out that making mistakes is the most useful thing to be doing, the very most useful thing in maths. But students often feel really bad, crushed even, if they make a mistake in maths. They think it means that they're not a maths person. But it turns out it's really the most useful thing they can be doing. Jason Moser and his colleagues published an article in Psychological Science, which I'm putting in the references, and they reported the evidence of significant brain changes when students make a mistake. They also found that the brain growth that happens was different, greater in growth mindset individuals than in fixed mindset individuals. So again, the greater response of the growth mindset people and the brain growth they showed, that they were more aware of mistakes with a greater reaction and greater accuracy afterwards. It's really amazing, and that paper's in the reference section. So that evidence points to two things for me. The new science of the brain, showing us that brains actually change when people make a mistake. And again, the importance of a growth mindset, as it was the growth mindset people's brains who grew the most.
Anything stand out to you in really any of the clips so far, but in that one?
It's not so much that what stood out, but it's from my historical perspective, the reaction of people when they make a mistake. And so framing the lessons, etc., in a way that mistakes is just, okay, we've gone down the wrong path, not water red ink, I guess. And I haven't been in a math class in a while, so I wouldn't know. I'm hoping they don't teach like that anymore. But we always used to have a professor who gave us a question that none of us could solve over the weekend. It was one of those, just nobody in the class could solve it. It was one, and that was all we had for homework. And I always used to think it's crazy, but you know, in hindsight, that sounds like it was probably the best thing I could have done.
I have a question. I have a 9.5-year-old boy who is not doing well at math. He would clearly be fixed mindset, and he falls under the category of I'm stupid, I'm dumb, and I got his EQA test results from last year, and he falls into the absolute lowest category of performance out of the whole school board. He's in that 2%. They can barely assess him because he won't even try. And we can't even assess him to see if he has a math disability because he won't even try. So I have a very complex child, and so I came specifically for this one. So part of me got excited when I heard every time you make a mistake is that, you know, it's an opportunity to try. I guess as his mom, if I can even get him to sit and do homework, you know, I guess how do I reach him in any way around his beliefs around math? Because I'm stupid. and his remarks are reflecting that he's not stupid, because I know he's not stupid, but he's just now convinced. Not
So-
capable.
What I mean, I'm certainly not the expert, but what I do know is that we're all very unique in the way that we're gonna experience this change of mindset. So, you know, most of us in this room have a very, at this point in time, our mindset is pretty set, and it'll take small changes. And even in 9.5 years, your son has created a mindset for himself around his own learning.
Oh, yeah.
So what I would say is it's everyone's inch is different, and you have to pick those teachable moments. You know, we heard that downstairs, is what are those teachable moments, and it might just be focusing on one for a longer period of time until you do see that little change. And you know your son best, so you'll notice those changes more than anyone, I think. I mean, you're looking for those little inches, and it's just those baby steps. So I would say taking this research and trying just little things at a time and giving them that time and that space.
Praising his effort, right? His effort.
Yeah, and I think just those little changes along the way, and having those expectations be whatever he's going to give, so everyone's inch will be different. So keep at it. And it comes to really, that's a great segue into this. So we want math class to be about learning and not performing. Okay, so we know that math is a growth subject. It does take time to learn, and it is all about effort. And if we have a growth mindset, we believe this because we don't believe that there's just math people in the world and non-math people. Everyone is a mathematician, okay? So this was a quote from a colleague of Joe Miller's son said this. So he said, you know what, math is too much answer time and not enough learning time. So the work in our system is really working to make math more about that learning time. Okay? So if you think about students who aren't successful maybe in a performance way, so whether that's time or it's just facts, if they're experiencing tasks in which it is about performance and it's a right or a wrong answer, and they're failing at those things because they're not getting the right answer, and it's not about the process, that is a very discouraging place to be for anyone, I think. Even as an adult, no matter what the context, that would be discouraging. So what we want to do is create tasks, create environments in which this learning time is valued, the process is valued, and the answer is important too, but we're recognizing that we're moving there as this growth subject. It will take time, and the effort that we put in is important. So that's part of the work in our system, and the things that we've done to try to help that are, there's many different things. So what are we doing? One of the ways is we're trying to create messaging in schools to elicit these feelings. So growth mindset is a big focus in our board right now. Due to the research that we're learning about, we want kids to believe that they can be a mathematician, that they can be a historian, that they can be anything really, but that it's their effort that matters. We're trying to move away from practice worksheets, which are about performing in math, and focus on rich tasks that elicit those thinking, allow students to talk to one another about their mistakes, about the challenges that they had, because we know we're learning from each other in those moments. We want to make math more about learning than performing. And one of the strategies that we're using, and some of you were in the previous presentation, is called Number Talks. So Number Talks works on mental math, and it's building number sense in our students. You know that number sense is a strand that transcends all the other strands, and is quite important in our daily lives. So we're going to experience a sort of number talk. So the people that were here earlier won't quite experience it in the same way. We're going to do a mini number talk. So I'm going to put a fact, a multiplication fact on the board. And I want you to think about how you're going to, I want you to solve it in your head, mentally, in whatever way you'd like. Okay, so if you need to write stuff down to hold the numbers, that's fine. I don't want you to calculate on your paper. I want you to try and do this mentally. Okay, so this is an example of something we might do with students in a mini way. Okay, so here's a fact I want you to try. How would you answer that question mentally in your mind? Just give me a minute. So in a number talk, we would have students share, and we would record, the teacher would record their responses. So I'm actually not going to do the recording with the board writing. But does anyone want to share how they did solve the problem? Thanks.
I took 18 and I divided it by 2, and then I took 5 and multiplied it by 2, so that I came up with 90. And
Great, so what was your new fact when you divided by 2 and multiplied by 2?
do the same thing on both sides. It makes it easier to do in your head.
Yeah, so what was 18 divided by 2?
9,
And 5 times 2 was?
10.
So you did 9 times 10, and it was?
Yeah.
Okay, so you doubled it. Great.
Yeah, I turned 18 into 20 and got to 100 and then said, okay, well, what's 5 times 2? Take away that.
That's how I did it too.
Great. So you went to a friendly number, 20 times 5 was a known fact for
Yeah.
you, and then you just simply removed those groups that you didn't need that were extra. Great.
Yeah.
3 different ways, but the third way is 5 times 10 is 50, and 5 times 8 is 40, 50 and 40 is 90.
Great. So we would say that we decompose the 18 into friendlier facts for you, so 5 times 10 and 5 times 8 was the way that you did that task. So number talks are used to build this idea of number sense. So we might only just do those three responses. I would have recorded those if you were in the number talk session previous to this. You would have seen some open arrays that I would have drawn. We're going to see a video of how we captured the thinking. But I'm going to let Jo Buller talk. So she uses this particular fact and in a number of her different video series and courses to demonstrate this idea of how we build number sense and how we value multiple responses. I want you to watch it with that lens of a growth mindset. How is honoring these different strategies that Jo Buller is going to show, and many of them, actually she's going to repeat your solutions, how is this promoting a growth mindset? How is this type of a number talk promoting that?
Hi, my name's Jo Bowler and I'm a professor at Stanford. So what is number sense? Let's think about a problem. Let's think about 18 times 5. A student with number sense could solve this in many ways. For example, they might say, I know 20 times 5 is 100, and I know 2 times 5 is 10, and I'll take 10 away from 100, which gives me 90. We can visually represent that, and visual connections are really important for our brain. So what would that look like? If I drew 18 times 5 as a rectangle like this, we could represent 20 times 5 by saying it would be a slightly bigger rectangle, and we'd subtract this blue part. Another way to think about 18 times 5 is to say it's actually equivalent to 9 times 10. And the visual representation of 9 times 10 is kind of interesting. If our 18 times 5 rectangle looks like this, then our 9 times 10 rectangle would look like this. And that 9 times 10 rectangle has the same area as the 18 times 5 rectangle. A third way I might solve this is to say, well, I know 9 times 5 is 45, and I can do that twice to give me my 18 times 5. And that visual would look like this. There's our 18 times 5 rectangle, and this time I worked out 9 times 5 and 9 times 5. And there we have those two rectangles. A fourth way to solve this is somebody might say that they want to break up the 18 to work out 10 times 5 and then 8 times 5 and add those solutions together. And the visual of that is, if this is our 18 times 5 rectangle, then we can find our 10 times 5 and 8 times 5 rectangles, and they would look something like this. Another way, a fifth way of solving it, is not to think of 5 18s, but to break that up and to think of 2 18s of 36, and then we have another 2 18s of 36, and add on a single 18 to give us 90. And that visual looks a little different to our others, so if we have our 18 times 5 rectangle, this time we've broken up the 5 into a 2, a 2, and a 1. So we've seen 5 different methods for 18 times 5. Can you find different ways of solving 12 times 9, both numerically and visually? The variety of methods we see is part of the beauty and creativity in maths. All problems can be solved in different ways, and we should embrace that. Number flexibility, being able to work with numbers and see what they are made of and combine them in different ways, is an important part of number sense. If you'd like to see and learn more, come to UCubed.
So Number Talks is one of the things that we're doing across Halton. How is that promoting a growth mindset in our students?
Seeing more than one way to solve the problem.
Students are seeing lots of different strategies. Tell us.
It probably encourages a lot more kids to feel comfortable with that, so that it's not strictly a number.
I'm sure there will be more growth and brain development if you're, adding all these different strategies and different ways of, being able to solve a problem. Makes it a little easier, I think.
Also elicits a fair amount of discussion too. Maybe somebody over here said, I can do it this way, we had discussion over here because there was, oh, I didn't think about that, I solved it this way. So now as a group, you're still all coming to the same answer, but you're looking at how the process is different. Therefore, every one of us had a different process to get to the same number, which is a good thing.
And our curriculum is built off our mathematical processes, and so representing is one of those processes, communicating, thinking, reasoning, improving is one of those processes, so all of those things are involved. And they're learning from each other. So if someone said I skip counted by 5s 18 times, I'm going to put that on the board as well. I'm honoring all the thinking. And it's about the learning, not the performance, not the answer, but about the learning that's involved in those conversations and trying different strategies. So I won't make you do the 12 times 9 in the interest of time. I was going to have you do it, but I think you're going to get away with that one. So, they were all the different representations, and so again, and we might be missing some. Time and time again, I do number talks with the students and staff, and I'm always amazed that as much as I anticipate what I think is going to happen, there's always something that I learn myself, so it's quite interesting. So at home, really, what does this mean for us as parents? You do have unique perspectives, and you are with your children in times outside of school, so you see them in a different perspective even, and how can you incorporate this in those moments. So we're going to ask you that you do promote a growth mindset towards math, but towards any subject, but definitely in math, that we recognize that power of yet. There's a great TED Talk about the power of yet if you're interested. Avoiding praising for smartness. And looking at that idea of effort. Okay? Ask your child to show and teach you what they're doing. What did you learn today? So we'll give you some tips in a moment. And build perseverance in your children. And in ourselves. I think that's a great quality that we can all take away. So, just a couple of quick tips. I think you're going to be about 5. So, have learning discussions at home with your child. Okay? So instead of you're at the dinner table and you say, how was school today? Good. All right, you have to ask them open questions. So, what did you learn today? It's so much better than how was your day? You get a 1 out of 10. Okay. What mistake did you make that taught you something today? Great question. Or what did you try hard at today? And maybe the first day is I tried really hard to play soccer at recess. And that's great. That's what they're going to answer. We're honoring all that thinking, and we're going to slowly move them into thinking about their subject area. So have those learning discussions with your children at home. Okay. Give feedback on process only. So praise their effort, praise their persistence, their strategies. Praise the fact that they're seeking challenges, that if they're given a choice, that they aren't maybe choosing something that might be easy for them, that they want a challenge, because they know they're learning in those challenges. Give them feedback on their planning or their creativity, okay, and how they're answering things. So avoiding that whole idea of smart or the grade or the A or the B or whatever it may be. Encourage the idea in your children that their brains can grow. So they can grow stronger and intelligence will improve throughout their life. Okay, we don't have a fixed intelligence. We know that our brain can grow in many different opportunities. It's not fixed, and it is changeable. Okay? And work out that brain. Kids need to know that that's possible. And those stories with the London cab drivers and the girl who had her half of her brain removed and that it grew back is some really neat things that you can share. Okay? Encourage risk-taking, failing, and learning from mistakes. We need to let our kids take risks and fail. It's an important part of those life lessons because they are going to encounter failure. And if they have that fixed mindset, we know that making mistakes in a fixed mindset, your brain does not grow as many synapses as if you have a growth mindset and you make a mistake. Okay? So as hard as it is sometimes to watch that, we need to let kids take those risks and fail because we know that they're learning from them. But why we do that is because they learn how to be resilient. Okay. Our instincts as teachers and I'm sure as parents is to protect them, right? And we don't want them to fail and we want them to experience successes. But there is a lot of power in that with that growth mindset attached to it. Here are some famous failures. So you might recognize people on this screen. So Michael Jordan's failure was that he was cut from his high school basketball team. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original stories. Steve Jobs, at 30 years old, was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started. Eminem was a high school dropout. The Beatles were rejected by Decca Recording Studios, who said, "We don't like their sound. They have no future in show business." So, some funny ones there. That again, great to share with kids, and these people overcame those challenges and certainly accomplished and really encouraging and modeling positive self-talk. So, kids are sponges, and they're observing things, they're hearing things, and they're experiencing things. And the more you are modeling that language, and it's a big shift. The praise study for me was a big eye-opener, and that has taken me a long time to change the way I use praise with students. And I really still have to think about it, because we're so conditioned to say, "Oh my gosh, you're so smart, that was so great," rather than praising the learning process or the effort. So one that's easier to kind of say than do, but in practice is really important with this one. So we had 3 kind of questions for you to hopefully consider and leave us some answers to. We want you to understand what a growth mindset is. We hope you have some answers to how growth mindset supports your children in mathematics. And we hope we've given you some ideas of how you might support. To help you with that, and to have it as a takeaway, we've given this handout to the PIC committee as well. Joe Bowler, so U cubed was written on the board earlier. Joe Bowler is who you saw in all those videos. So she has a website that is ucubed.org. That's where this handout comes from. Okay? The videos that you saw are from a course that Joe Bowler actually does, how to learn math there's one for teachers, there's one for students, and there's one for parents. So you can actually register for her courses and just do them all online. You get some great ideas. But a lot of the things that she has are linked and just publicly available. These are just 6 quick facts of how you can help your child at home in math, promoting that growth mindset, ideas for you to take home, and there's some parent resources on the back. And definitely would encourage you to check out ucube.org for some more resources if you are looking for that. And Krista and I will be here to take questions, or if anyone has a question for the group, feel free. We recognize we're between you and lunch, so we know that if you want to hightail it and get into that line, we appreciate that. But thank you so much for taking the time on this Saturday to come learn with us. We really appreciate your participation. Have a wonderful day and a nice weekend.